Purpose of this video is to outline basic SOPs, to explain different situations and scenarios in order to train and teach new detectives in a better and more efficient way. The video does not cover whole SOPs but outlines most important parts alongside with additional tips and comments. No training will ever prepare you for a real situations fully, but a good training will give you a foundation to work on with experience and common sense. Before we get into the detail about the detective unit, it is important to understand the structure of SD and importance of a patrol division. Being a detective does not mean you're more important than the other officers, it just means you get to do a different job. Respect patrol division as they are the main power of SD as well as your backup when shit hits the fan. While in detective unit you are expected to take professionalism to a higher level. You must treat everyone with respect and act as a role model. With that said, there is 3 stages of loadouts. Each varies with equipment needed depending on the situation you find yourself in. First stage is patrol. At any point when you are not needed with detective duties, you have an option to take a break and go on patrol in a uniform reflecting your rank. While on patrol, you follow regular patrol SOPs and act as you were taught during your SD training. Second stage is called low profile. At this stage, you are wearing civilian clothing with an SD vest that you can take on or off at any point as situation demands. Most of your time on duty you will spend in low profile stage, driving an unmarked police vehicle. Keep in mind that you can only perform traffic stops in unmarked vehicle if you have a full uniform on you. Otherwise, you need to call for marked units. Exception to this would be if a said suspect is breaking the law with misdemeanor or higher. Low profile allows you to identify to other officers and civilians when needed with option of taking the vest off and transitioning into third stage, undercover. Undercover means you are wearing a civilian clothing without any identifiers. You are driving a civilian vehicle without any lights or sirens, and you are portraying yourself as a civilian until needed to break cover. Breaking cover is something that should be done in the last moment if possible, as in many situations you being able to provide undercover intel is far more valuable than having one more officer on scene, but we will get more into detail about that later. Every detective is recommended to carry 2 cell phones and 2 firearms. Reason being is you can always attempt to hide backups in case of kidnapping. Most of the time, hostage takers will order you to drop your weapon and a cell phone and will rarely expect you to carry backups. Also, binoculars can come in very useful in surveillance operations. Before we move on to another topic, we must cover identification. In your SOPs, it states you do not have to identify yourself to anyone while working undercover, but use that with common sense. Sometimes it will be an asset to let officers know you are on scene, and sometimes you won't be able to break your cover. However, most important thing to remember is when you do break your cover and start acting as a law enforcement officer, make sure all other officers on scene are aware of your presence. Also, when calling for backup, make sure you announce yourself over the radio with saying, "Be advised, plain clothes, officers on scene." If you have more time, feel free to give out more detail, such as description of your clothes and vehicle. The next topic is regarding communication. As mentioned earlier, information is the strongest weapon. Being able to communicate clearly is an important skill that needs to be learned. No matter the situation, it is expected you keep awareness of things happening around you. Detectives use additional frequency to communicate between themselves. Working as a team is the main point of this unit. If you don't know how to set up additional frequency, click on the link above. Now we have covered basics to prepare you to be able to sign yourself on duty. The question is, what to do from here? Detectives are responsible for tasks that patrol does not have time or resources to deal with. Examples are narcotics, weapon trades, organized crime, and the list continues. While patrol has duties to patrol the streets to keep the public safe, including keeping traffic laws and 911 calls, detectives' patrol duties are quite different. Your job is to focus on high crime spots, check known narcotic growing selling location, known weapon dealers, and no gang activity areas. You can find more information on those in your database, but keep in mind, your duties are to investigate high crime areas. That does not mean harassing civilians. Just because you know a person is part of a gang, it does not mean you have the right to sit in the front of his house 24/7. This brings us back to working as a team. Depending on the number of detectives available at the time, the different tasks will be delegated to you. We mentioned a database earlier. Well, to clarify more on that, if you think detective job is all chasing people in unmarked cars and doing drug busts, you are very far from becoming a detective. You will soon realize that for every factions you do, there will be quite a bit of investigative paperwork in the background. You may wonder, why is it so important to fill out useless papers that keep you far away from the streets? Well, as we said earlier, we work as a team in order to operate as a unit. What we learn ourselves need to be documented for others to access. For example, if you arrest a person 3 times in a row for growing weed, you put it in his profile case, and then a detective from the opposite shift can access that document and keep an eye out certain things when dealing with said individual. Now we've came to the fun part, operations. There's all kinds of operations you will be involved during your time in the detective unit, but for the purpose of this video we can classify the operations into a few categories. First and the most common things would be the drug busts. Drug busts can vary on a lot of factors, but there are a few key points to go through. To start with, always confirm the person in possession of narcotics. Make sure you have the evidence of him touching the narcotics in order for it to be viable evidence at the court. While moving in, make sure the area is contained and the criminal doesn't have an easy way out. Last but not least, make sure you seize all units including the ones planted on the field. Another possible operation you may find yourself part of it is the bait cars. The best way to perform such an operation is to leave a car with low amounts of fuel in a highly populated area, with having marked card units on standby, preferably highway. You wait while keeping eyes on the vehicle from the distance. When someone enters the bait car, give it a moment to confirm he isn't just trying to park the car to a safer location. If he takes off, perform a felony stop while keeping public safety as a top priority. Last but not least, you can find yourself in different types of sting operations. Sting operations including undercover officers purchasing or selling illegal items in order to catch criminals. There is a fine line of entrapment in this type of work, and it is something that will take a bit more learning to master. As example of a sting operations would be an officer responding to a Twitter message of a person selling a weapon. Undercover officer would talk up to the person and attempt to buy a weapon. Once it is confirmed that the suspect is selling illegal weapons, backup on standby would move in for the arrest.